Jorge Humberto Martin Scartetz came into the world on the 5th of January, 1978, in the bustling metropolis of Mexico City. Details about his family background remain scarce, pieced together from fragmented interviews where he painted a bleak picture of his upbringing. He described a childhood overshadowed by a volatile mother, prone to outbursts, and a father he characterized as lacking strength and resolve. It's plausible that these turbulent familial dynamics shaped him into a young man, guarded and emotionally withdrawn, with a temperament that veered toward the unpredictable and, at times, even cruel. To make ends meet, Jorge took on work as a waiter in various bars across Mexico City, particularly frequenting establishments in the Zona Rosa and La Condesa districts. It was in the shadows of these vibrant neighborhoods that he embarked on his descent into a life of crime. Jorge's initial brush with incarceration occurred in 2010, stemming from a charge of aggravated robbery. Despite the gravity of the offense, which could have landed him behind bars for 4 years, his lack of prior convictions swayed the judge to grant him bail. Little did anyone know they were releasing a potential killer back onto the streets, a man who would eventually become one of Mexico's most wanted criminals. Upon his release, Jorge became involved with a young woman named Adriana Ramos, and he fell deeply in love with her. Initially, he was affectionate and attentive, but as their relationship deepened, a darker side of Jorge began to emerge, marked by cruelty. For months, Adriana endured Jorge's physical abuse, but finally, weary of his cruelty, she resolved to end the relationship. However, Jorge couldn't accept her decision to leave. One night, he dragged her by the hair down the stairs and beat her so brutally that he broke her nose. Not satisfied with this, the man turned on the gas stove in the kitchen and, holding a lighter in his hand, threatened her. He declared that if they couldn't be together, he would end their lives right then and there. Facing the threats, Adriana continued to resist, and then he grabbed her neck and tried to strangle her. Adriana, with a surge of adrenaline, wrenched herself free. Her hand landed on a nearby sledgehammer. In that instant, she channeled her fear into action, swinging the heavy tool with all her might towards Jorge. The unexpected ferocity stunned him, halting him just as he reached the door. He stumbled back, then fled, disappearing from her life. Little did Adriana know then, but her courageous act was more than just self-defense. It was an escape from the clutches of a man who might have already harbored deadly intentions. Despite reporting the incident, like Gorbejo, Jorge managed to evade consequences, leaving Adriana to grapple with the aftermath of her harrowing ordeal. In 2011, a man's life took a dark turn when he crossed paths with a woman who would tragically become one of his victims. This was 18-year-old Yanc Kyung Jun Borega, a young woman of Korean descent. Living with her parents, she shared a close bond with her mother, Monica Borega, and her 2 sisters. Yanc was known for her bright spirit and intelligence. She was passionate about sports, enjoyed exploring new foods, and cherished spending time with her friends. She was studying psychology and worked in a restaurant in Colonia Roma, one of Mexico City's most affluent neighborhoods. It was in this very neighborhood that Yanc and Jorge first met, their paths crossing at the bar where he worked. One afternoon, something about him caught her eye, and after a handful of encounters, a passionate yet turbulent relationship blossomed between them. Despite the rocky nature of their bond, marked by frequent breakups, Yanc, at the tender age of 19, yearned for independence. She made the bold decision to leave her parents' home and move in with Jorge. However, the change of scenery only intensified the existing issues within their relationship. Jorge's controlling tendencies spiraled, and he began to dictate every facet of her life. He would incessantly call her at work, forbid her from spending time with her friends, and even dictate the clothes she was allowed to wear. When Yanc dared to voice her dissent, Jorge would lash out, his attacks both verbal and physical. Despite the abuse, she desperately tried to conceal the violence she endured. She distanced herself from her family, hoping to shield her parents from the hellish reality she faced. Yanc confided in only a select few about her torment. Among those she trusted were her sister, Anna, and a handful of her closest friends. Though everyone advised her to leave Jorge, and despite multiple attempts to break free, she invariably found herself drawn back into his orbit. In nearly 3 years of their relationship, Yanc had undergone a profound transformation. The once vibrant and cheerful girl had morphed into a subdued and timid young woman. She even altered her appearance, sacrificing her beloved long hair, all in an effort to please her partner. Their arguments, sadly, grew increasingly bitter and frequent. Late one night, Yanc arrived home, only to find Jorge barring her entry. This wasn't an isolated incident. On another occasion, he forbade her from leaving. His behavior escalated, marked by destroying her clothes and pursuing her relentlessly throughout their apartment. The breaking point arrived in late August of 2014. Following a particularly fierce argument, Yanc made the definitive decision to return to her parents' home. Driven by her friend's insistence, she filed a report against Jorge, her resolve to leave him seemingly unshakable. Yet mirroring past patterns, the separation proved fleeting. She returned to their shared apartment, only to be found lifeless just 14 days later, in the early hours of September 21st. Jorge himself reportedly discovered the body. She was hanging from the ceiling, a scarf cinched around her neck, her legs marred by numerous bruises. In his statement to the police, the man claimed he had left the apartment around midday on September 20th, while Yanc was asleep. He recounted returning from his bartending job in the early morning to find her suspended. He immediately alerted the authorities and the girl's relatives. Monica, along with her sister and daughter Anna, rushed to the scene. Upon arriving at the house, they were met by police officers and forensic experts, carefully extracting the body from where it lay on the floor, nestled among the furniture. Jorge recounted his desperate attempts to help his partner, explaining how she had tragically fallen from the ceiling. The officers informed Monica that her daughter had willingly taken her own life. They reached this conclusion not just based on the evidence, but also because it aligned with Jorge's statement. It seemed beyond doubt for everyone except the girl's parents, who were in disbelief. They had never noticed any signs that their daughter was struggling or contemplating such a drastic act. Upon arriving at the police station, the official report was nearly complete, listing asphyxiation as the cause of death. However, upon receiving the body, the girl's relatives noticed bruises on her legs, a detail that struck them as unusual. In his defense, Jorge explained that when he found Yanc, he desperately tried to lay her on the floor, but her body slipped and she accidentally fell. Monica harbored doubts, struggling to accept Jorge's account, especially after hearing testimonies from Yank's friends, which painted a picture of a relationship fraught with conflict. During the police interviews, the victim's friends were questioned about any unusual or troubling dynamics between the couple. Several revealed that Jorge was an intensely jealous and controlling individual. Despite these revelations, the authorities seemed uninterested in pursuing a deeper investigation. They moved to close the case, presuming the 21-year-old had taken her own life. Law enforcement even suggested that the family cremate the body. Though Yank's mother harbored doubts, the decision was made, precluding any further forensic examination. With Yanc gone, a shadow fell over her family, particularly her mother, whose world crumbled. Monica found herself adrift, turning to alcohol and tobacco to numb the acute pangs of loneliness. The chasm between her and her husband widened, and the family dynamic became so strained that one of her daughters left home, unable to endure the constant sorrow. Yet a mother's intuition proved stronger than her grief, driving her to seek answers and unravel the mystery surrounding her daughter's untimely passing. Monica's mind wrestled with a few nagging doubts. First, the sheer zest for life that radiated from her daughter made the idea of suicide utterly unbelievable. Second, there were the bruises, too prominent, too deliberately placed to be the result of a simple fall. And third, an odd, unsettling detail. A missing lock of hair, a strange absence that felt wrong, out of place in the grim tableau. Driven by these inconsistencies, a mother's instinct ignited, and Monica embarked on her own private investigation, determined to uncover the truth hidden beneath the surface. Driven by an unshakable resolve, she requested access to the surveillance footage from her daughter's home. What she discovered was chilling. The last person to be seen with her daughter that fateful day was a man named Jorge. Acting swiftly, she enlisted the aid of legal counsel and a seasoned forensic expert to unravel the truth. The private medical analysis of her daughter's cause of death veered sharply from the initial assumptions. The expert's insight was stark. Had her daughter Yanc taken her own life, certain telltale signs would have been evident in the post-mortem examination. These crucial indicators, however, were conspicuously absent from the official records. The roots of the investigation lay in the marks on the victim's neck, grim evidence suggesting she was strangled before being hoisted by a scarf to the ceiling. Further underscoring a struggle, her fingernails were discolored, a dark purple hue hinting at desperate attempts to fight back. An expert cautioned that any competent forensic examination would undoubtedly reach the same conclusion. Haunted by these details, Yank's mother couldn't shake one agonizing question. Why did the police disregard all the tangible evidence and insist her daughter had taken her own life? After 7 months of tireless investigation, Monique unearthed a series of alarming irregularities surrounding the Yanc case. Among them was the disturbing revelation that her daughter had repeatedly reached out to the authorities, pleading for help regarding Jorge's violent behavior. Tragically, her cries for assistance went unanswered. Monique also uncovered evidence suggesting suspicious communication between Jorge, his father, and the officers directly involved in the case. To add insult to injury, the single crucial piece of evidence she possessed vanished without a trace. The story revolves around a scarf, a seemingly insignificant piece of fabric that held the key to a mother's relentless pursuit of justice. Armed with evidence, Monica implored the district attorney to reclassify her daughter's death and investigate Jorge as the prime suspect. Dismissed and demeaned, the district attorney condescendingly told her that she was merely a housewife, not an investigator. He suggested she seek psychological help to cope with her grief. The truth was, Monica's pleas fell on deaf ears until 2016, when Jorge took the life of another young woman. Alexandra Camarlin Lannis, affectionately known as Compera, harbored a deep affection for animals, with a particular fondness for cats. This love inspired her to embark on a journey into veterinary medicine. However, the rigors of the practical training proved too demanding, and she ultimately decided to discontinue her studies. At the age of 31, Compera's life took an interesting turn when she met Jorge. Home was a modest dwelling in the middle-class neighborhood of Santa Dominga, nestled in Coyoacan. She shared her life with her 2 children, aged 12 and 3, and her brother Gabriel. She first became a mother with a son fathered by a man named Juan Carlos, but tragedy struck when she was widowed in 2012. Following her husband's passing, she discovered she was carrying his daughter, who arrived a few months later. Choosing family over career, she devoted herself entirely to raising her 2 children, supported by 2 pensions and the income from several rental properties. While she cherished her relationship with her mother, Margarita, she found a deeper connection with her maternal aunt, Sandra, who became her confidant and closest friend. Compera dedicated her life to her children, but deep down, she longed for companionship, dreaming of finding a partner who could become a loving husband and father to her 2 kids. In the digital echo of those days, love often found its way through the labyrinth of social networks. It was here that she crossed paths with Jorge, or as he presented himself, Joy Drago, a 38-year-old widower residing in the vibrant heart of Mexico City. Online, Jorge was an open book, amicable, communicative, and engaging. Yet beneath the facade of a charming adventurer, a tattoo aficionado, and an all-around decent man lurked a seasoned criminal. Unaware of the darkness concealed beneath the surface, Compera found herself drawn to him from their very first exchange. From the realm of digital connection, a virtual friendship blossomed into a tangible romance. News of their burgeoning relationship rippled through her close circle of female friends and family when she shared a joyful photograph of them together on social media. As the days melted into weeks, the calendar crept towards the close of 2016. On the 28th of December, Margarita finally had the pleasure of meeting her daughter's boyfriend. That very day, Compera, along with Jorge and their children, embarked on a journey to her mother's house in Acapulco, ready to embrace the New Year festivities. Driven by the insistence of one of them, the couple made a decision to return to Coyoacan, but without their children. Compera asked her mother to stay with the little ones for a few more days, so they could rest until the 5th of January. The woman agreed. Little did she know that within 3 days, her daughter would be found lifeless, and their last conversation had already taken place on the 30th of December. The following day, on the eve of the new year, Margarita made several attempts to reach her daughter, but there was no answer. A mother's intuition began to whisper that something was terribly wrong. It was unusual for Compera not to respond, especially on such a significant date. Furthermore, she hadn't been active on social media for several hours. That's when the woman decided to call Jorge to inquire about her daughter's whereabouts. He confessed that they had argued, and she had gone out with friends to celebrate New Year's Eve. Alarmed, Margarita reached out to a family friend, urging her to visit Campier's home and check on her well-being. However, upon arrival, the friend was met by Jorge, who claimed that the woman was asleep and unable to speak with her. When Campier's friend relayed this information to Margarita, she immediately sensed that something was amiss. On the 31st of December, sometime between 5 p.m. and 8:30 p.m., Jorge took Campier's life, strangling her. Furthermore, he inflicted numerous wounds upon her body, many of which appeared to have been caused by an unknown object, and severed a lock of her long hair. He gently placed her body on the sofa, covering it with a dial, leaving only her head exposed. To deflect suspicion, Jorge turned on the gas stove, staging it to appear as though she had taken her own life. He even placed a photograph of her deceased former husband in Campier's hand, hoping to suggest that he was the cause of her demise. Around 8:30 p.m., the man gathered his belongings and quietly left the house. In the early hours of the New Year's Day, January 1st, 2017, Campier's mother called, intending to wish her a Happy New Year, but her cell phone was already turned off. Upon receiving an unsettling call from his mother, Gabriel was asked to check on his sister. He immediately rushed to her house, and the moment he stepped inside, a potent smell of gas assaulted his senses. Acting quickly, Gabriel dashed to the kitchen and turned off the stove, averting a potential disaster. Driven by growing concern, he began searching for Campiera. He found her lying motionless on the sofa, covered by a dial. As Gabriel approached, a wave of dread washed over him. Campiera showed no signs of life, and several bruises marred her face, clustered around her chin. Swinging open the door to Adiala's chambers, the young man was met with a disturbing sight. Campiera was clad only in her undergarments, her arms and legs marred by bruises. Strangely, despite the splatters of blood around her, the woman herself appeared pristine, as if she had just emerged from a bath. Gabriel noticed a further unsettling detail. A large chunk of her hair was missing. This struck them as particularly odd, for Campiera was known for her meticulous care of her long, flowing locks. Overwhelmed by this heartbreaking revelation, the young man contacted the authorities to report the tragic event. He also called his mother, who felt as though she had been stabbed in the heart upon hearing the news. A part of their world crumbled that day, not only for her, but also for Campiera's children and the rest of her family. A team of paramedics, accompanied by several police officers, arrived at the house within minutes of Gabriel's call and pronounced Campiera dead. Initially, based on the preliminary findings, the police suspected that the woman had taken her own life. However, her family strongly disagreed with this conclusion. A young and vivacious woman, full of love for her children and a zest for life, met an untimely end. Compounding the family's grief was the mysterious disappearance of a lock of her hair, nowhere to be found. Doubting that suicide was the cause, they pleaded for a more thorough investigation. The Dumatsin forensic examination revealed a grim truth. The scene had been staged. The cause of death was, in fact, strangulation. Marks on her neck, coupled with the state of her trachea, painted a horrifying picture. Someone had held her throat with such force that she was unable to breathe. The missing lock of hair and bruises all over the body, clearly not self-inflicted, were added to the evidence. Once the crime was confirmed, the Coyacana prosecutor's office took over the case. Time passed with no progress. Only after 2.5 months, the Campiera family managed to access the apartment where the events took place, aiming to retrieve the woman's belongings and gather more information. At the scene, they recovered Campiera's laptop, only to find it had been recently wiped, preventing any data retrieval. Her iPad offered a glimmer of hope, but upon cracking the password, they discovered the last photos were taken just before her demise. Driven by grief and a thirst for justice, Campiera's aunt launched a social media page titled Justice for All. She posted pictures of Jorge, imploring anyone with information about his whereabouts to come forward. The plea resonated deeply. Monica, the mother of Janko, who had been found dead in 2014, recognized Jorge. She immediately reached out to both families. A chilling coincidence connected the two mothers, binding them together in their shared loss. Two mothers bound by unimaginable grief found their lives intertwined by a chilling coincidence. Their daughters had died just 2 years apart. Each loss initially ruled a tragic accident, but as the mothers wrestled with their sorrow, a disturbing pattern emerged. Driven by a mother's intuition and an unyielding need for answers, they launched their own investigation. What they uncovered sent shivers down their spines. In both instances, a man had meticulously woven himself into their daughters' lives. He'd courted them, isolating them from friends and family before ultimately taking their lives, staging each scene to resemble a suicide. A particularly unsettling detail further solidified their suspicions. After each death, a lock of the young woman's hair had vanished. Determined to bring this man to justice, the mothers relentlessly pursued every lead. They even managed to obtain crucial surveillance footage from a neighboring house, which they promptly handed over to the police. Following a meticulous review of the evidence, a chilling detail emerged. Jorge had entered the woman's residence approximately 6 hours after the presumed time of death. Surveillance footage revealed him leaving the premises, a backpack slung over his shoulder. Records indicated that Jorge was inside the house from 5 p.m. until 8:30 p.m. and 11 p.m. This time frame aligned disturbingly well with the forensic estimations of when the woman's life had been extinguished. This revelation dramatically altered the course of the investigation, casting Jorge as the prime suspect. Law enforcement immediately launched a manhunt, but he had vanished without a trace. He vanished. His usual haunts saw him no more. His social media fell silent, and he cut off all contact. It was a clear flight, a silent confession. Months dwindled into seasons as the investigation stalled. The Mexican police, facing dead ends, sought Interpol's aid, securing an arrest warrant for Jorge. The hunt extended across 192 nations. Fueled by the relentless efforts of Kemperaz and Yank's mothers, the case gained traction in the media. Jorge was branded the bride's killer, a man who courted women, entangled their lives, and then vanished with their savings. As the story spread, other women, survivors of his scheme, came forward, painting a chilling portrait of his calculated deceit. Young women, unfortunate enough to have crossed paths with Jorge, recounted their experiences. He would charm them, showering them with affection and sharing every detail of his life. But once a relationship began, he would turn cruel. Adriana, one of his earliest ex-girlfriends and a key figure in our earlier coverage, testified as a witness, detailing the horrifying abuse she endured. Finally, after 10 long months on the run, on October 24, 2017, the man was apprehended in Guatemala, almost by chance during a national civil police operation in Livingston. During a routine patrol, authorities encountered a man who appeared to be homeless. Upon requesting his identification, they noticed his suspicious behavior. A fingerprint scan revealed an Interpol warrant for his arrest. Consequently, the man was taken into custody at a migrant shelter in Guatemala City. Central American authorities promptly contacted their Mexican counterparts to arrange his extradition. On October 25th of that year, he was transferred to Mexico City. The following day, Jorge was brought before a compliance judge with an arrest warrant for his alleged involvement in Kemper's death. He was placed in custody for 4 months pending trial. Although the man was now in custody, achieving justice for Kemper's relatives proved challenging. As Jorge's lawyers managed to delay the process for years using amparo proceedings, the Yanc family, on their part, faced their own struggles. In May of 2021, after 7 years, it was proposed to initiate criminal proceedings against Jorge. By June of that same year, according to criminal records from the Superior Court of Mexico City, an official warrant was issued for his arrest, accusing him of Yank's murder. In November of 2023, after years of waiting, 45-year-old Jorge Humberto Martin Scartetz was finally convicted. He received a sentence of 52 years and 6 months in prison. While justice has finally been served for the victim's family, the relatives of Kemper face a longer road ahead. The trial was initially scheduled to begin in April of 2022, but a cunning maneuver by Jorge's lawyer led to a postponement, pushing the court date to January 29, 2024. Sadly, as of today, no information regarding the trial has surfaced. Kemper's relatives, especially her Aunt Sandra, continue to fight relentlessly to ensure the perpetrator is held accountable for his actions against the woman. The loss of her daughter was a devastating blow for Margarita. She not only had to come to terms with her grief in the absence of justice, but also take on the responsibility of caring for her 2 grandchildren. The family holds on to hope that the day will come when justice for Igor will be served on Jorge. They understand there's no bringing Campru back, but they are determined to seek justice for her.